You're listening to Cinema Rex. That is an Iranian film podcast. Episode 45, Shahram Mokri's Ashkan, The Sacred Ring and Other Stories.
Ashkan, انگشتر متبرک و داستان‌های دیگر.
How did you feel about this movie?
The first time we watched it...
No, we're not there yet. I tricked you. But yeah, good morning. How are you doing? Everything's good? Great.
Yeah, everything's good. I was out of milk.
That's too bad.
Yeah.
How will you recover? Durud bar shoma dostan aziz. This is the Cinerex podcast where we talk all things Iranian films and filmmaking, acting, performances, television, heists,
Goldfish,
blind men,
birds, money,
art, angels,
jewelry boxes,
vignettes,
unlucky,
non-linear vignettes,
unlucky rings.
Non-linear vignettes. I'm Kaveh Mohebi.
And I'm Farhan Moradi.
And today we're diving you into one of our probably more, it's not our most recent film, but it's in the latter half of recent. So the 2008 film. So where would that put it? Like, I know we've done obviously way more recent films. Done a lot of Farhadi that is more recent, but this is up there in the more contemporary films.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know in terms of like the median of the timeline. I've never kept track of the dates of the films.
So I'm really excited that we got to do this film because Shahram Mokri is a very fascinating figure in Iranian cinema, in my estimation anyways. We are, of course, as you probably know, as you've clicked the button already, we're doing Ashkan, The Charmed Ring and Other Stories. And not only just knowing from clicking, you obviously heard us say it a few times already. But I'm really excited to talk about the filmmaker as well as the film, because there's a lot of fascinating tales to unpack here.
Yep.
Should I dive into the plot summary before we just talk about our reactions, and then we can talk about general vibes?
Yeah.
A tangled web of fate, love, and larceny. In a city where nothing goes as planned, a pair of blind would-be robbers plot a doomed jewelry heist. A hotel employee can't seem to die no matter how hard he tries, and two morgue attendants spend their nights chasing more than just corpses. Toss in a lovesick cop pining for a cashier, eloping lovers on the run, and a few more misfits crossing paths in all the wrong places, and you've got a crime drama like no other. Told through a series of twisted, non-linear tales, this darkly comic odyssey of violence, redemption, and fate brings together a hilariously mismatched cast whose lives crash into each other in ways neither they nor you will see coming. This film has no Rotten Tomatoes score and no audience score because Iranian films be like that sometimes. So I ask you, Farhan June, what did you think of Ashkan, Angoshtare, Charmed, and Dastanhay Digar?
Ashkan, انگشتر متبرک و داستان‌های دیگر.
Yeah.
I liked it. I like sort of saw this with you when we were in LA. I was editing the podcast while you were watching it, so I was like catching it bits and pieces. And from what I was seeing, I was like, this movie's really cool.
Yeah.
More than anything, it's like genuinely a cool movie. You know what I mean? Like the music, the style, the way it's shot. Also, like the way that they converted the footage from 25 frames per second to 24 frames per second makes it feel a little like staccato and jittery, but it adds to the aesthetic of the film.
Okay, I was going to ask you about that in behind the scenes and trivia.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch the Blu-ray, it's the first thing that comes up is like right there on the screen that they had to do that.
Before we go into that, because I want to ask you, like, I don't understand what that means. But let's talk about the plot a little bit. Because essentially, and I don't want to go into too much spoiler in case people are interested in seeing this. First of all, I noticed when you just Google this film, you can find this film on Apple Plus. It's fully available for rent.
Yeah.
So this is one of the films we can just tell you, there it is. It's really easy to find compared to some of our other films. And we will end up talking some spoiler stuff, but the first half we will front load it with a lot of plot stuff that doesn't give away too many twists and reveals.
Yeah.
What's really interesting about this is it's a series of vignettes. It's seemingly disconnected, unrelated characters, a bunch of stories, a little bit of slice of life.
Yeah.
You got a couple that's sort of eloping from a father who doesn't want them together. You've got these two blind jewelry heist thieves. You have all these disconnected stories that in a very Pulp Fiction-y like manner start kind of connecting one by one,
yeah.
But you're also not getting the story in the order that in a linear format. So
It's
you
very
might
much
get,
like a cinematic jigsaw.
yeah, and you might get a previous scene later on, and so it answers some stuff and it reveals things, and you kind of discover how these characters actually might be more connected than you thought. And that is a lot of the fun of this. It kind of has that Memento feel, Pulp Fiction, Run Lola Run. That is, to me, one of the most fascinating things about it. It's something I really liked about it because it seems so genuinely, like you said, cool and fresh from an Iranian filmmaker. It's got a youthful voice, like blind bank robbers and long conversations about film and cinema in a car is very, again, like I'm going to bring up Pulp Fiction 100 times in this podcast because you can just Google like reviews of this film and you'll see it mentioned
while they're driving around and they're having like arguments about mundane topics.
Yeah.
Is very Pulp Fiction-y, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Again, we will eventually start revealing some of the twists and tales, but I think we both recommend watching this movie and give it a shot. It's like an hour and 29 minutes long.
Yeah, it's pretty short. It kind of feels like if Tarantino tried to make a Jacques Tati film.
Yeah. Tati, yeah, maybe.
Like, because of the dialogue. The dialogue definitely feels more Tati or like Wes Anderson. Like, it doesn't feel like as much
Jacques
like
Tati's for the dialogue? I don't really think of Tati for his dialogue.
Interesting. Okay.
Maybe.
I meant because it's like whimsical and the humor. Do you know what I mean?
I see. Oh, yeah, for sure. Like that. Yeah.
Because it's definitely more like the humor is more whimsical than Tarantino's humor. Whereas I find Tarantino's humor, a big part of it is the like shock and awe of like how brutal some things are or how like,
yeah,
I don't know.
But there are moments too that are so hilarious in a way that, like, I'll give you this one example. There's a scene when there's two gangsters that are going to track down a couple that's trying to kind of run away and they might have the jewels on them. And the guy in the passenger seat pulls out a really small knife. Then the driver says, you have to kill them. If you want to kill them, you have to kill them as painlessly as possible. You know, that would do too much damage. And he says, you have to use kindness. And the guy's like, all right, kindness, I get it. And he pulls out a huge samurai sword.
Yeah.
And that felt like such a Tarantino joke.
Yeah, because he's like,
that was like,
he's like, you have to take him out in one fell swoop, like in one strike.
Yeah. So there's all these great moments.
But I will say, in that same moment, the dialogue of it didn't feel like the way that it was written felt more like Wes Anderson or Tati, because he's like, is that what you're bringing? This is what I'm bringing. You can't bring that. You need something that'll kill the person immediately. You have to be kinder. Then he pulls out the katana and he goes, this is what I'm bringing. Like, it's like, it's a lot of like, that's what you're doing? This is what I'm doing. Is that it?
Yeah.
This is it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is a black and white film as well.
Yeah.
And I guess we could talk about this. So explain this frames. It's the first thing they mention right off the top.
Yeah.
They have it sort of it's almost like an apology.
Yeah.
Like the first thing you see, you're like, well, we had this thing we had to do. And you know, I hope it doesn't discourage you from liking the film.
It's like the most Iranian thing. Like you're like going to someone's house. They're like, oh, you know, like, I'm sorry, my place isn't super clean. Or like, I'm sorry, my place is hard to find. Yeah. Oh, the tadik is good, but like, I'm sorry, it's not as crispy as you might want.
It is very much like modest in that way. But let me read it and then you can explain it to me because this is technical.
Yeah.
This film was originally shot on video at 25 frames per second. For overseas distribution, Ashkan was converted to the international standard 24 frames per second. Regrettably, this conversion was done by removing 1 frame per second from the movie, which may be occasionally visible. Despite the issue, we feel that it is still the best available master for Ashkan and hope that it does not impact your enjoyment of the movie. Additionally, with the permission of the filmmaker and rights holder, a short scene featuring footage from 2001: A Space Odyssey was removed from this release for copyright reasons. Now, this is why I'm going to ask you a question. There is a jankiness to this film.
Yeah.
Which at times took me out of the moment of enjoying scenes. It's partially because it's black and white. Partially because there's like sometimes really quick cuts. It just seemed like, and maybe it's because my like technical mind isn't as finely tuned to this stuff. But was it my brain was noticing that missing frame at times, and I'm feeling like I'm disoriented or something? What is that about?
I mean, what happens when you remove that 1 frame is that when there's fast movement, or when there's not so fast that there's motion blur, but when there's movement on the screen, you'll notice when a frame is missing.
That's what I felt. Yeah.
Okay, so you might not notice it like consciously, but subconsciously you might notice that like, oh, it's like a little like jaggedy when there's movement.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And it's essentially that every second you're missing a frame. So it's like every second you're missing it. So if someone is
There's a
still
miniature.
yeah. If someone is still, you won't notice it because the movement from like when you're still moving a tiny bit, right? Like you're never going to be completely still. But it's the movement is so minuscule that if you're missing one frame out of 25, you're not going to notice it. But if your hand is moving across the screen, then all of a sudden, partway through that video, your hand is going to like jump locations. The standard is 24 frames per second.
That's the worldwide standard.
That's the standard. That's what it is, right? Yeah.
So why was this film like? How would anyone film in 25 frames per second?
Because it's easier to convert it to broadcast standards in Europe.
Okay. Going back to Shahram Mokri, I think one thing that's fascinating too is there's that Blu-ray release by Deaf Crocodile, or I know Vinegar Syndrome also is the distributor that releases it, but it's a collection of his films called The Twisted Tales of Shahram Mokri. The Time-Bending Tales of Shahram Mokri.
It's like the cover art is beautiful.
Yeah. And what's cool about it is 4 films, and you start even just by like a quick assessment of, let me get the title proper here. Okay, The Time-Bending Mysteries of Shahram Mokri. And once you get a sense of even the log lines of the 4 films, this guy's a very strongly genre filmmaker.
Yeah.
One of the stories is this film, which is bank heist or like jewelry heist, Pulp Fiction-y, nonlinear. Another one of his stories, Fish and Cat, is about a serial killer. Another story is about a virus that breaks out in Iran, like a plague, a pandemic. And another film is actually about the setting of fire of Cinema Rex Theater, which we should definitely do for a future episode because it's almost like the events surrounding that news headline.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, so this film's no different, very genre heavy, and that makes him a really interesting filmmaker because I've complained that there isn't enough genre films in the Iranian cinema pantheon.
Yeah. We
have some of the horror stuff.
And Mokri had the same thought too.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
He said that before? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. And I have to really applaud him for that because finally we're starting to see some interest in that world.
Yeah.
Whether it's, and there's other more contemporary films doing it too, but this kind of feels like the first auteur filmmaker who's really trying to break the mold.
I feel like this movie really rewards you for rewatches. Am I right? Like I've only seen it once, but you've seen it a couple times now, right?
Yeah. I would say yes and no, because the weird thing about the way they reveal the story is by the end of the film, you're already being rewarded. Like you might get thrown into the first half of this movie, I have no idea what's going on. Who are these people? Who are the story? You get frustrated really early on.
Yeah.
But you're rewarded by sticking to it because you start seeing how and why these characters are connected, and it's really satisfying in that way. The second time watching it, you're less concerned because they're all going to go back together. It's been about a 1 year gap between the last time I'd seen it, so I'd forgotten how some things pay off. But I wouldn't say necessarily that I was more rewarded on second viewing, other than just knowing that I was in sure footing. I was I don't remember how this connects, but I remember there's a reason for this too.
Right. I mean, so the reason I ask is because there's a couple spots that I don't quite understand what was happening.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I went and rewatched it again, I'd be like, oh, right, okay.
Well, and you know what? There's a few spots I was hoping you'd know better than I do, because on my second viewing with that 1 year gap, I was like, why do I feel like I understood this better the first time? And there's some, we'll get to it, but specifically with the details and machinations of the actual jewelry heist.
Yeah. No, me too. Okay, yeah, me too.
Okay.
I had a couple questions about that.
Okay. Well, I might not be able to answer that. I'm going to list some of the storylines that we see in this film, and you tell me if I've missed anything that's really important. But again, like I mentioned, 2 blind robbers have been hired to do a heist, right? A jewelry heist. A man named Ashkan, who's in the titular character, is simply trying to commit suicide because he can't land the woman he loves. He can't even confess his love for her, so he's going to kill himself. But it's very comical set of vignettes where he's unable to do it, right? Mm-hmm. A love-struck police officer or police general is stalking his love interest at a grocery and trying to do his job while in love. A couple of female morgue attendants are trying to do their day job while all the interference of the stuff that's going on. a young couple in love are trying to escape because the boyfriend's father is a drug dealer or like gangster of sorts and doesn't want them together.
Mhm.
What else? Is there any other main stories that you think I might be missing from this collection? There are smaller bits like
Yeah, the
a
artist.
really
There's an artist.
the artist. Those are the bookends. It's
Yeah,
like sort of
yeah.
almost like the way into it. There's an artist who can't get his famous sculpture out the front door, so they have to find a way out, which
Mhm.
is huge payoff in the end.
Mhm.
I really enjoy. And then the other thing was there's sort of this cut back to vignette, or not a vignette, but like there's a scene. It's just a comical scene that really doesn't have any like stake in anything else. But the doctor is going over one of the patients in the morgue,
Yeah,
explaining
yeah,
how
yeah.
this guy has died, and he's like, clearly this was a man who lived a very active life and really big social life. And then you're cutting to like a split screen, and you're seeing this corpse, his life, the moments before he died.
Like how
And
he
it's nothing
actually
what-
died. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing what the doctor is saying,
Yeah.
but the doctor is speaking with such confidence.
Yeah, you're
that
like
he's just
seeing the doctor on the left side, and you're seeing how the guy actually died on the right side, like all
Yeah.
on the screen at the same time.
Yeah. And like that doesn't end up really having much of a payoff or anything. It's just kind of a funny
Yeah.
scene. Right? Like
Yeah.
that's but again, those comedic moments really punctuate like the heist and the action, the drama, the character stuff. And again, like I can't stress it enough. Very reminding me of the humor used in Pulp Fiction to deal with some of the darker stuff.
That's funny because to me, some of that humor again felt more like Wes Anderson.
Yeah. But I feel like it's darker comedy.
Definitely darker.
almost.
Definitely darker than like Wes Anderson, but more whimsical than Tarantino.
Like there's a scene when Ashkan, you kind of realize there's a woman he's in love with, and he's like picking up a delivery or something. He's dropping something off, and then he's trying to work up the courage. He's got flowers in his hand. He's going to work up the courage to tell this woman how he feels. And then he goes to the bathroom and he talks to himself in the mirror. He's like, just go up to her. Tell her how you feel. You can do this. Just say the words.
Yeah.
And then he goes out and she's already on her way out. He goes up to her, and at that moment reminds me so much of John Travolta in like literally in Pulp Fiction. There's a scene he goes into the bathroom and he's trying to, I mean, he's not, because that night it's Marcellus Wallace's wife. He's like kind of courting his boss's wife for one night. It's Uma Thurman. And he goes into the bathroom, speaks to himself in the mirror. He's like, just go out, tell her you had a great time and get out of there, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, this scene feels exactly like that scene in Pulp Fiction.
That's true.
So I kept seeing it all over. Then like little funny moments, like those attendants that work at the morgue, they're trying to like, they have like, the room is filled with corpses on gurneys.
Yeah.
And they have to fit one more in and they just can't. So they're trying to Tetris the entire thing. Like a little mini montage of them moving bodies out of the room, moving it in. And then they finally get them all in and they realize now there's 2 bodies out of the room. Like they have even less bodies in the room than they had before.
I really like how in a bunch of the scenes of the movie, things are happening in those scenes where you're just like, oh wow, that's like an interesting detail, like that this is in this scene and we're focusing on this or whatever. And in a lot of movies where you would see that, you're just like, oh, what a like random whimsical detail in this scene or whatever, you know? It's like kind of funny and random and whimsical that the movie's randomly cutting to this fishbowl all of a sudden, or it's like, I don't know, cutting to, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
or there's like a bank robbery going on or a robbery going on upstairs. And a shootout, like, because why not, you know? But then as the movie goes on, you start to realize, like, oh, these aren't just like random whimsical details. This is we're experiencing inklings of the other stories in the film.
Yeah, there's payoffs for all these things too. Like that goldfish, you realize ends up having massive repercussions for another storyline. That we saw,
Yeah,
so it crosses
yeah.
over that way.
Yeah, and you also find out that there's backstory to the goldfish. Like you get context for it in both directions.
Yeah, that goldfish really goes through a lot of character development in that.
Yeah, it does.
I want to do a little bit light spoiler for something. So
Okay.
I just want to say if this part, if you've been convinced at least to give this film a shot, you're interested in seeing some Iranian films that are unlike other Iranian films, something that's kind of a bit of a rarity, we do recommend this film. And again, it's on Apple Plus. So just rent it there.
Yeah, this one's very accessible. Very accessible. So if you want to watch it, go watch it now and then come back.
Yeah. The reveal that Ashkan was in the room when the 2 blind robbers. I love that was the moment that I really kind of sunk into like, oh, I'm in like pretty good hands here.
Yeah.
Because essentially one of the earliest scenes in the entire film are the 2 blind robbers who are entering a hotel room to discuss the details of their heist.
Yeah.
And we only see the select shots that are showing them kind of relatively medium shot. They're kind of sitting in their corners of the room. And it kind of, in and of itself, doesn't feel like any significant scene, really, other than just setup.
Yeah.
Later on, we see Ashkan is a man who's in love with a woman. He kind of is, he's not kind of, he's suicidal.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to find ways to kill himself. And finally, he can't take it anymore. He wants to hang himself in the hotel room, but because of the way he's standing on the bed and the bed being too wide, he can't actually jump off the bed to hang himself. So he's creating a series of pillows and things to stand on. And in that moment, what has happened is the two blind men walk into the hotel room. And that is the moment you realize this is a repeat of that earlier scene from a new perspective, revealing that, of course, these two blind people did not know there was another person in the room while they were discussing the details of the heist. And it's a very clever, very funny, and very unique way of sort of doing that setup.
Yeah. Also, not to mention that, like, the conversation that those other two men are having, the blind robbers, is about a dream that one of the robbers had, where he's like, yeah, I was talking to this guy in my dream, and he was saying this, this, and that. And he's like, how do you know he was talking to you? He's like, what do you mean? He's like, well, in your dream, who was he talking to? He's like, well, it was just me and him. He's like, well, did you check behind you? Maybe there was somebody behind you. He's like, why in my dream, when someone's talking to me, why would I check behind me to see if there's somebody else there? Clearly, there's not going to be somebody else in the room. And like, this is the conversation they're having. So that when you come back to it later and they're having this conversation, it's so much funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really funny, really clever. And then basically, Ashkan, he slips and falls, and they realize there's another person in the room. But then what's really brilliant about it is this is a man who wants to end his life. And he's now paired up with these two blind robbers who are willing to do this heist, but they're also worried about dying. So they realize, oh, this is a perfect matchup. Is you want to die, you can help us with this heist. And if they shoot us, you could be the one who gets essentially in the line of fire. And it works out well for everybody.
Yeah, because they're also convinced. They're like, if people pull guns on us, they're not going to shoot the blind guys. They're going to shoot the guy who can see.
Yeah.
And in fact, they were supposed to be a third guy with them during the robbery, but he bailed, which made them be like, oh, well, clearly that guy knew he was going to get killed, which is why he bailed.
Yeah. It's like the Simpsons version of this would be like, this is a suicide mission. And then Ashkan would be like, suicide mission, you say?
Yeah.
It's like, that's the version of it.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to comment on in terms of our reaction is I love this little moment he does when the two cops are trying to remember when they thought they witnessed one of the blind robbers. They're like, we saw him carrying a bag, didn't we? And it cuts to a flashback and he's carrying a bag. And it's like, no, we were facing the sunlight. So it was really bright out. Maybe he wasn't carrying a bag. And they redo the flashback, but now they're all wearing sunglasses.
Well, first he's like, are you sure you saw what you saw?
Yeah.
He's like, maybe you didn't.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back and he's just not even there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's just two random guys are like sitting around a fire.
Yeah.
And then he's like, maybe I didn't. He's like, I know it was really bright out.
Yeah.
He's like, it's bright, you say. And then it cuts back and he is there. But then everyone in the shot is just wearing sunglasses, including himself.
Yeah, it's really funny use of like flashback and it's very playful. Like this film is filled with little like fun moments that is just having it's not taking itself too seriously. Yeah. Which is such a rare thing for Iranian films, man. Iranian films, for as beautiful and complicated as they are, they're pretty self-serious and self-important and no nonsense, you know? Like you watch a pantheon of Iranian films, you leave it like with like heartache and headache and sadness and, you know, longing. But this is just like kind of comedic bit after comedic bit. Not too serious, not taking itself too important, self-important. It's a really nice, refreshing take on an Iranian story. Yeah. You know?
What did they give to Manucher? I'm confused by the couple's story. The girl and the guy who are driving in the car.
I don't remember what they're giving to Manucher, but I remember that the father is that hooded kind of like drug dealer that at the beginning, right? Do you remember?
Okay.
Do you remember the hooded man who's looking at the jewelry and
that's
stuff?
Her dad?
That's his dad.
Oh, okay.
And she's like the secretary or whatever administrative person that works for him. So when he says to her, listen, you're carrying a box of expensive jewelry. I don't want you ending up with my son. if something were to happen where you just left and disappeared with that jewelry forever, you could start your own life, start a fresh life. You don't have to spend your time with my son. It's just like hint saying, to which she goes and explains all this to her son, to her lover, her husband, boyfriend, whatever. And now they have this jewelry in their hands, and they're contemplating what to do with it because we could just take the money together and start a new life.
And then the blind robber's plot is essentially to get away with the jewelry and the money, right? Because they pay the money to get the jewelry, but then the guy comes in and robs that same money. And then they like swap it out with, I'm assuming, fake banknotes when they leave, right? So then
I think so.
So then their whole thing is they leave with both, right?
I take your lead on that. Sure, I couldn't follow that storyline specifically this time because I know there's something also about dropping off some of the money, or there's a bag of
he
something
leaves
they
it
drop
in
off
the
garbage,
dumpster.
Right? Yeah. But what is that? That's the real money to be taken later.
I think so, yeah. And I think that's also the same dumpster that they crash into later.
Right.
I kind of want to go through and like recut this film in chronological order.
Yeah, just to get a better understanding.
Yeah, just to like rewatch it and be like, it's kind of like, when you do those like word puzzles or those games in like the newspaper.
Yeah.
You have your own set of answers, but then once you've done it, you're like, okay, now I want to check against the answers and see if I actually got it right. That's like kind of what I want to do. I kind of want to go and like recut the whole thing and be like, okay, did I get this right?
Question, like who ends up with the money in the end? Was it Ashkan?
No, because Ashkan puts it in the dumpster.
Right. So who ends up with who wins?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure Ashkan dies in front of the sculpture.
Yeah, because you realize that he's been shot, which is also a very interesting choice. Very Schindler's List, where you only see a splash of color, and that's red 2 times in the film. You see the red blood coming out of his eyes when the guy's been hit by a car.
Yeah.
And you see the red bullet wound in Ashkan when he's falling to his knees.
Oh, is it red in that scene? I thought it was only when the blood drips off the one guy's face.
Ashkan's bullet hole is red too.
Okay. I thought it was black and white. Yeah, okay. So he probably dies. And I think he's one of the bodies that's in the morgue later.
Oh, you think so?
I'm pretty sure. Which is why when they're like, oh, now there's 2 bodies or whatever, I think one is a reference to Ashkan, and then the other one is a reference to the guy who like slips in the kitchen.
I didn't realize that.
And then it knocks the thing, goldfish, right?
Yeah.
The goldfish rolls out, falls onto the ground, right?
Yeah.
The car on its way to the dumpster to pick the money back up. I think that's who's supposed to pick up the money is those 2 hitmen. I think they're on their way to pick up the money at the dumpster. They get a flat tire and crash into the dumpster, and then the dumpster door closes, right?
Right, okay.
And then as they get out, the one guy goes to change the tire, the other one goes to save the fish.
Yeah, and
the couple who's like trying to do their like quick getaway with the fake money that they don't realize is fake crashes into the hitman. And then right around this time, the cops who had just seen one of the blind guys run out with the jewelry comes towards the blind guy, and then they arrest him or whatever, and they take him in.
Yeah.
Then those other people see him. The couple see him when the cops pretty much arrest everybody, right? So I think chronologically, the real ending is the cops arrest everybody and leave. I think that is the ending, and I think the money is left in the dumpster.
Right.
But I don't know what happens to the bag with the jewelry that the blind guy had.
Yeah. That might fall under a bit of Festival of Cons of like, because the story seems to end up being more interested in this angel moment, which we can get to, where it's the setup and payoff of like, this artist is sad that his sculpture is never going to get noticed, but there's a guy, his friend, who knows an Iranian named the Caribbean. And the Caribbean is like prophetic.
He's not. His name is Caribbean. But he's not. Yeah, but he is Iranian, which I thought was also funny.
Like, yeah, the Caribbean has told his friend that one day someone will see your artwork and drop to their knees.
That's when you know you've made true art. Yeah.
And the therapist has also told Ashkan that one day you'll see an angel coming down towards you or whatever.
Yeah.
And so these 2 moments collide with him stopping his car because the sculptor's work, which is a giant angel, is now being descended from the window because they can't get it through the front door, which is the opening kind of conversation of the whole film. And Ashkan, who gets out to see this angel, he drops to his knees because he's been shot by a bullet, but the artist is seeing Ashkan drop to his knees. It's all kind of like this, like the bookends of this film are like really interesting and well connected, but I think we lose a bit of the thread of the heist because of these two scenes.
Yeah. Yeah. Just a couple other little things that I liked. Did you notice when the one blind guy, the bald one, when he goes to pick up the jewelry box, on his way out, he runs point with the like gallery attendant or the like jeweler, the collector. He's distracting him, right? While everybody else continues their plot.
Yeah.
Did you notice what he was distracting the guy with?
I don't remember.
He was looking through a photo album with him.
Okay.
But he's blind.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So he's like flipping through it, and he's like, "Oh, and who's this or whatever?" And he's like, "Oh, that's this and that."
I didn't even clock that. That's really funny.
Also, when Ashkan goes to rob everybody, and he's like, "Everybody turn around, you too.
Yeah.
Nobody look at me or whatever." And then he says it to the blind guy too, and the blind guy's like, "The hell?" So he turns around.
Yeah. I remember that.
There's like so many little jokes about how people just like forget that these people are actually blind.
Yeah. Behind the scenes and trivia. Just a little bit about Shahram Mokri, since we haven't done his films before. He was born on August 17th, 1978. A young filmmaker. Mm-hmm. Young man. Very young. He graduated from Sur University, and Mokri started his filmmaking training in the Iranian Youth Cinema Society and entered the professional world of cinema with his short film Dragonfly Storm.
For our Iranians watching, Anjuman Sinema Javani was the name of the film society he was a part of.
Okay, interesting.
He grew up in Kermanshah during the war. Did you know that?
Yeah, I saw that. Mokri received 3 Crystal Seymours from the Faj Film Festival for several short films, I think. And he holds the record for receiving Crystal Seymours in this category.
That's dope.
For his short film, The Dragonfly Storm, Mokri won Best Director at the 2007 Noor Iranian Film Festival. So kind of a prolific, sort of up-and-coming young career as a short filmmaker before he made this, which this film, Ashkan, The Charmed Ring and Other Stories, is his first feature film. Do you know the Abbas Kiarostami story? I'll tell you anyways. I'm glad you asked. Afra told me this, and then it's explained also on the Blu-ray. Kiarostami's final film is a feature called 24 Frames. Criterion has actually released it. Do you know about 24? It's a collection of 24 short. It's 24 short, 4.5 minute frames. Like it's almost like still images, like photographs. Mm-hmm. But over that 4.5 minutes for each image, like slowly things start moving. So it's like a painting that's coming to life. Mm-hmm. Like you might see like horses started being added to the horizon or whatever. So it's essentially like more of an art exhibit of 24 frames over 4.5 minutes each. It's his very last film. And 2017 is, I think, when it came out. In one of the very last images of the film, he wrote Shahram Mokri's name in Farsi the corner of a painting, in the corner of one of the images.
That's cool.
To this day, nobody has a confirmed reason as to why he did that. Not even Mokri himself.
Whoa.
So, again, this is a Criterion film. You can purchase it or rent it or watch it on the Criterion channel. But one of the big prevailing theories is that Kiarostami may have been so enamored by Mokri's films. This is 2017, so he made already a couple by that point. Mm-hmm. That this is his tip-off to saying that Mokri is the future of Iranian films.
That's
because it's literally one of the last images on Kiarostami's last film. And I don't think Kiarostami necessarily knew it would be his last film, but maybe he got a sense that this is leaning towards the end of his career.
Yeah.
Right? And for him to leave that message of Shahram Mokri's name without any indication is kind of, I mean, first of all, it's a real huge honor. It's like the king passing the crown.
Yeah.
But also it's a little mysterious and a little vague, like a little inside joke to himself. So it's a really interesting little tidbit about Mokri and whether this is the passing of the torch or not. There's something to glean from this
that's cool. I like that.
Is unfinished. Yeah. I do have a snippet of what he had said in an interview, Shahram Mokri, about this film, Ashkan, The Charmed Ring, and his other films. He said, I thought to myself, when we can discover the magic in M.C. Escher's works only when we follow the movement of characters or the path he is suggesting in his drawings with our gaze. By following it, we realize that we are looking at something magical, an impossible image. In fact, my main idea was to transform the definition of a shot as a cinematic unit in which time only moves forward to the idea in which time moves forward and backwards at the same time. Nonlinear narratives are made of a set of shots which are disarranged like a puzzle, but the brain makes them whole with its linear definition of time. When you watch a nonlinear narrative, what you actually do is imagine them in a linear format. Your brain enjoys solving this temporal puzzle. I wanted to rid the brain of this power.
That's cool.
You've seen MC Escher's work, right?
Probably in film school.
Very famously, there's a Simpsons couch gag about MC Escher's paintings because it's like the staircase going upside down, entering a hole that comes out of another door.
Yeah.
It's like that Simpsons bit where they're all trying to get to the couch, but they're coming from different upside down staircases and sideways staircase. Like MC Escher's like very famous for these like very weird, surreal, labyrinthy like rooms, right? Like just the things kind of all go into each other. Those impossible staircases that kind of repeat themselves. You know, those ones that kind of, you're always going up on a staircase. So that's MC Escher's style, and I guess he was very influenced by that and tried to want to emulate that in a cinematic form.
That's cool.
That's what I have for behind the scenes trivia on my end.
So when he was growing up in Iran, VHS tapes were illegal, and at the time the movies shown in theaters were like few and far between and selectively curated by the government. That's essentially around the same time that this genre called sacred defense really took off in Iran. It was all like war movies, basically. And the government would pay a lot of money for them to be made, but that's like pretty much all there was. But his dad was a huge cinephile. And before the revolution, his dad actually worked for a period as a professional film critic.
Oh, cool.
So his his reviews were published in a newspaper. So growing up, he would hear stories from his dad about his favorite films. And although his dad would review a lot of like serious cinematic, like artsy films, his favorite movies were like Tarzan and Zorro and all these adventure films.
Right, yeah.
When Shahram and his siblings were growing up, they were like enamored by these stories of Tarzan and Zorro, right? These Western films. When he was 6 years old, his dad took him to Cinema Azadi to watch his first movie on the big screen, which was Tobe no Su by Makhmalbaf.
Okay.
His dad's love of film is basically what he credits to rubbing off on him.
Yeah.
And then little by little, when movies were being shown on TV, most of the films being shown were Japanese films or movies from the Eastern Bloc. So he grew up with a lot of Kurosawa, Toshiro Mifune movies, like movies that he stars in.
Yeah.
Movies by, I'm going to butcher this name, Andrzej Wajda, Prajanov, and Tarkovsky. So he grew up watching these films from the East, but then hearing stories of like Tarzan and John Wayne and Zorro from the West. It was burgeoning within these two worlds where he gained an appreciation for these cinematic masterpieces like Tarkovsky and Kurosawa, but he was always interested in the myth of these like American genre films. When VHS tapes and VCRs first came to Iran, they were contraband. So you'd have to like go to the back of a store and know a guy who knew a guy, and you would secretly like rent it. But he says we'd rent a VHS player and as many movies as we could, sometimes 10 to 12 movies. And we would stay up all night watching all of them before returning them. And at first they started with Western movies that came out before the revolution. So he talks about Diamonds Are Forever, Treasure Island, Moby Dick, Great Expectations. These were a lot of the films that he was seeing at first, and they were dubbed in Persian. The newest movies that he got to see were Star Wars, E.T., and Close Encounters. Those were the last movies that were dubbed before the revolution.
Right.
After they ran out of those, then he started to watch movies that had been subbed on the black market. So newer movies. Around this time now, he was watching tons of these like 90s indie American movies, and he was really drawn to them. He thought they were very unique. He was really excited by them. Some of the movies that he mentioned were, he talks about Jim Jarmusch, Tarantino, Hartley. I'm guessing that's Hal Hartley. When he went to film school, he was excited to go because it was a way for him to kind of get away from home and be independent.
Yeah.
And like stand on his own 2 feet for a bit. And the other side of it was he just wanted to be in an environment where he was surrounded by other cinephiles his own age who were into movies. It was around this time where Kiarostami's work was really taking off. And because of the success of Kiarostami, all of his cohorts, like his classmates, the shorts that they were making were super minimalist in style. They would shoot them in villages and rural areas of Iran. But because of his love of these 90s American indie films, he wanted to make things that were more genre, right?
Yeah.
He wanted to do Tarantino with a bit of Jean-Pierre Melville comedy punched in.
Mm-hmm.
Another movie that he mentions as an influence on him was Doug Liman's Go. Is Doug Liman?
Yeah, okay, Doug. I think it's Doug Lyman. The film Go, it's a Sarah Polley film, right?
Is it?
Is it like from 1998-ish?
I assume so.
Yeah, okay.
My internet is down, so I can't fact check right now. So he also talks about the first movie that he made, like when he was first starting to play around with these like non-linear style of filmmaking.
Yeah.
He talks about he had come home one night and turned on his TV and he saw an adaptation of one of the stories from 1001 Nights, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in one of these stories, it's the same story that Ghaffari adapted in Night of the Hunchback, where the guy chokes on his food and then the body is being moved from place to place throughout the night.
Okay.
So it was a different person's adaptation of it. And in that adaptation, the movie ends in a court scene where the last person found with the body is on trial and he like admits to having killed the body because he thinks that he like bumped into it or whatever, right? And this is where he turned on his TV. So he turned on his TV at the end of the movie. And so he's watching it and he's like, oh, okay, like I guess this guy killed this person. And then someone else stands up in the stands and they're like, no, I have to admit something. He didn't kill that person. It was actually I who did it when I did this, this, and that. When I disposed of the body here, that's how that guy got the body. And then he's like, oh, interesting. Okay. And then someone else stands up and he's like, so as a viewer, he thought it was interesting seeing a movie where with each scene or with each step, you're getting further and further back and you're getting a wider and wider picture of the movie. So everything you've seen is constantly being recontextualized and the layers are being peeled back or the layers are being added back on, which he thought was an interesting way to watch a movie. So he took that experience with his love of Tarantino and a few other of these 90s indie filmmakers, and that's how he made The Dragonfly Storm, which is his first short.
Is that also nonlinear?
I don't know. I found it online. I just didn't get a chance to see it. It's only 10 minutes.
Okay.
So through his short films, they went on to do really well. He won a bunch of awards at the Faj Film Festival for Dragonfly Storm, was nominated for Best Emerging Filmmaker in a category that was only reserved for first-time feature filmmakers. So imagine you're going up against, you're like, first-time feature film is in this category, it's nominated, and it's like you and 4 other feature filmmakers, and then there's like one guy who made a short film in that category.
Yeah.
Right?
So it did. Annoying.
Yeah, it did really well, and because of the success of that, people started to like kind of know who he was, right? One of the jurors on the film was someone that he got to meet, Zahid Ibrahimifar, who's also an Iranian director. He was one of the jurors on the film,
okay.
And he went on to work on some of Ibrahimifar's films later because they met through film festivals with this short film. So he later goes on and he's editing somebody else's movie. He doesn't say whose, but while he's editing the movie, they're on lunch and he sits down with the producer and he tells the producer, yeah, I have this idea for this film that I was pitched. Originally, he was pitched at one of these festivals by another producer who was like, I want a Jean-Pierre Melville style heist film where 2 blind burglars are robbing a jewelry store. Mokri goes off and writes the script, but he pulls way more from Pulp Fiction on it, and he makes it non-linear. He delivers the script, and the producer's not into it. And he's like, yeah, this isn't what I want to do. Mokri takes the script, and he basically just hangs on to it for a couple years. The producer's like, how much money do you think you need to make it? And he's like, barely any money, 0 budget, like shoestring film. He's like, okay, well, give me a number. So he gives him a number, and right there, the producer pulls out a checkbook and cuts him a check to make the film. The full budget of the movie, and he hands him the check.
Wow.
In the role of the 2 blind men, he cast 2 of his friends. One of them was Zahid Ibrahimifar, that same director guy I mentioned that he became friends with.
Yeah.
And then the other one was Hutan Mokri, who has the same last name as him, but they're not related. It's one of his childhood friends, though.
Which one's his childhood friend? The bald one, I'm guessing, right?
I assume so, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Mokri says that he believes that every filmmaker's first movie should be in black and white because the industry won't let them make another black and white movie later. Like once they become like a household name.
Right.
He also felt that black and white photography was a way to differentiate his movie from other Iranian films at the time. It feels more unique and intriguing and fresh to audiences. Iranians and Iranian filmmakers really valued the intersection between reality and fiction, right? So that whole thing of like this quote unquote reality cinema where Iranian movies are very meta and you don't know where reality begins and fiction begins. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's to such an extent that it's very commonplace for Iranian actors to pretty much all be super meta. They're very competitive with their use of method against other actors on set. So it's almost like who can be their character the most.
Okay, cool.
And so he was saying that for him, this is also why when he wrote the dialogue of the film, he intentionally didn't want the dialogue to sound grounded. He wanted to, instead of pulling inspiration for his dialogue from the world around him, he was pulling dialogue directly from Western movie dialogue, where it felt more fantastical and elevated and intentionally fictional. He says, with American cinema, people can buy that Superman and Batman can fly through the sky, but Iranians don't buy that when it's coming from Iranian cinema. For some reason, they need it to be grounded, and he wanted to challenge this. And the last bit of BTS I have from him is a comment that he makes about film school. He mentions that Iranian cinema is broken into, quote, generations, where it's not so much just like, oh, this is new wave, and then this is like this massive like 40-year period. But he's like, within all of that, there's generations. And he belongs to a group, or he's a part of a group essentially called the sixth generation. And most of them were former film students, because this is kind of the first time that film school became like a thing in Iran. He says, education doesn't make you a filmmaker. Being a filmmaker requires passion and love of the art. Film school can provide a bit of a framework and some guidance.
It's very informative.
I hope so. It was a 1-hour interview.
Thank you, Farhan. Critical reactions. The only 3 things I have. There's no Rotten Tomato score, but there's something called the Hafez ceremony. Do you know what that is?
No.
Yeah, the Hafez ceremony, the Hafez Awards, is an annual awards ceremony for Iranian cinema and television. Mm-hmm. And I guess it's like their BAFTA or something, right? Specifically Iranian centric. So at the Hafez ceremony in 2016, Shahram Mokri won the Abbas Kiarostami Prize. He also was the nominee that year for the best screenplay in motion picture. So I guess it's like the best upcoming filmmaker or something. It's called the Abbas Kiarostami Prize, and Shahram Mokri won it. In 2010, he won the Jury Award nominee for Best International Film. Mm-hmm. And in 2010, he was a nominee for the Golden Alhambra at the Granada Film Festival.
Nice.
So, I mean, yeah. He's a well-received filmmaker with lots of awards.
I have a few other critical reactions that he mentions in that interview.
Sure.
Mokri admits that the film was received with largely positive reviews from critics and audiences. Even though it wasn't mainstream, it was well loved. He says it was selected as the second favorite film by critics in Film Magazine, Iran's premier cinema magazine. It won multiple awards in Iran, including Celebration of Iran's Film Critics, quote unquote, and got a Best Emerging Filmmaker award from the same celebration as well.
Deeper analysis. I don't know if you have so much that you've kind of mined from this in terms of themes, but the 2 pervasive things that I've seen in this is this idea that no matter how improbable, everything is connected in one way or another. Is one kind of underlying. It's just like how we're more interconnected as a species or as a culture than we know, and how there's sort of like, we're all one, man, to sound like a hippie. Also, the idea of kindness as a virtue. There's some talk about that and the importance of kindness. Those two gangsters, when they're following the couple, talk a lot about the importance of kindness. And there's like throughout these like heinous acts that are happening between people, you see these small acts of kindness that really kind of impact life and make things easier and better. So I don't know, this idea of like the connectivity of people and the human race and any kind of given culture is probably the main one I'd take from this.
I think that's pretty solid. I found because there's so much attention and energy spent on making sure that this film is told through a non-linear fashion, that there isn't as much time spent on these like introspective and quiet and minimalistic scenes. So it's like harder to glean like very deep analysis from it, because I think that this film, I don't think that that's what this film is trying to do. Do you know what I mean? Like, this film is telling you what it means when it wants to.
Yeah, for sure.
Its charm is that, look, this movie isn't about making you ponder the philosophies of life. It's about, okay, I'm going to take you on this really fun, interesting adventure in a way that you've never quite experienced before.
But there are moments he punctuates all those where like the people just stop to talk about things. They have philosophical musings about the importance of kindness, and they talk about how there's like virtues of life, and he talks about the Alain Delon film and the samurai, and they're kind of talking about how
which, by the way, is a reference to two things: one, his own love of samurai films, and two, Alain Delon was his dad's favorite actor.
Oh, cool, interesting.
Yeah.
Best scene. I think I like the most two moments, but my favorite scene is the therapist essentially trying to break up with Ashkan. I thought it really, really funny and enjoyable. It kind of changes up the pace of the film a lot for this brief moment, and you see this guy who's like clearly like suicidal and wants to end his life, but this therapist has just had it with him and can't help him anymore.
Yeah.
And he's like, he starts like talking about how he's essentially trying to break up with him. He's like, I can't see you anymore, this and this. And then Ashkan starts using a language used by the therapist to convince the therapist he's not tired of him.
Yeah.
He's like, so you learned that from me.
Yeah. He's like, maybe you just need to take a step back and like take a deep breath and sort things out a little bit. And he's like, what the hell?
He's like, you learned that because that's what I've been trying to tell you. I thought that was a really funny scene. I also did want to just say, like, as runner up, the reveal that Ashkan's in the room with the two blind robbers is so good.
Oh, it's really good. Yeah.
That it kind of is up there with one of my favorite scenes, but I got to give it the therapist scene. What about you?
Those are both really good scenes. I have two that are kind of tied for me as well. One of them is the intercut scene with the doctors in the morgue.
Yeah.
The split screen where the doctors in the morgue, where they're like, on the one side is we're seeing how the guy actually died, and on the other side is this doctor like confidently asserting like, yes, clearly he was murdered and it was a crime of passion and blah 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 and all this stuff. And like, but the guy, the way he actually died is he was like washing dishes and he slipped, and then he slipped on an egg and all this stuff.
Yeah, and he was they call him the corpse with like the oily feet. He's got oily feet, and it's because he was stepping on the egg. Yeah.
Well, first it was dish soap, and then the egg. Yeah. And then the other favorite scene for me is the intercut scene of the two hitmen when they're driving.
Yeah.
The same one when he like pulls out the switchblade, and then he's like, you have to be more compassionate, and then he pulls out the samurai sword.
Yeah.
That whole intercut scene, like everything they go through, everything they talk about, it's all really funny.
You had messaged me while you were watching the movie being like, I actually want to talk to you about this movie now. I have so many thoughts on this. What was the moment that you had first been like, I really want to talk about this?
Can't remember now.
But it was positive? Like you were like, I'm excited?
It was positive. It was just, because there's just makes me feel good like watching this movie. Like it's a lot of fun. It's really interesting. It's really unique.
Yeah.
These scenes, like the scenes that you just talked about, the scenes that I just talked about, like they're all very fun scenes.
Yeah.
And sometimes as the movie progresses, you start to see how bits and pieces of stories connect.
Yeah.
And it excites you because you're like, I know where this is going. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a fun experience. As opposed to like sometimes when you're watching a movie and a reveal, you can kind of see it coming. You're like, okay, I know where this is going.
Yeah.
With this one, it's like, oh man, like that's how this is connected. This is awesome. I'm excited to see this play out.
Yeah. Okay, damn, that's poetry. I'll just go mine quickly because we've referenced it 3 times. It is that scene. It's you have to bring something that causes kills immediately. You have to show more kindness. And that's the advice that the guy's giving the other gangster when he pulls out the small knife, to which the guy takes that advice and pulls out a katana.
Yeah.
با این میخوای بیای؟
با این میخوام بیام.
باید با چیزی بیای که طرف درجا تموم کنه. بمیره. باید مهربونتر باشی دیگه.
با این میخوام بیام.
خوبه.
That to me was like really fun.
Yeah, and then when he sees the goldfish, he's like, I did a good thing.
Yeah, I did my act of kindness.
Yeah.
I like that stuff a lot. So that was like
Yeah.
one of my favorite lines.
Yeah, that's good. Ashkan has his gun up against the jewelry security, and then he tells them, okay, I'm going to go out this door, then I'm going to go up the stairs, and then out through the exit. But don't pick your guns up and don't come after me until I'm gone. Cool? And then they nod. And then Ashkan leaves, and then as soon as he turns around, the one security guard goes, shouldn't we go after him? And then the other security guard goes, no, he said he's got to go through the door first, then up the stairs, then when he's gone, we can go. And then they wait, and he's like, okay, let's go.
من الان اول از این پله میرم بالا بعدش از در میرم بیرون فقط تا من کامل خارج نشدم یه وقت نه این تفنگاتون رو بردارینا
بریم نه اول گفت از پلا میرم بالا بعد از در رد میشه اون وقت حالا بریم
Yeah.
But it's just funny because it's like this
He's
whole
following
robbery.
instructions.
Ashkan is he's following instructions. Ashkan, this whole like robbery. He's being so polite with them. He's like, "Do you mind just doing this, whatever?" And that kindness pays off because later when they're coming after him, they're like, "No, we have to wait. He asked us to wait."
Favorite performance? I have one, and then I want to give a, and I don't even have the name for my runner-up, but I give it to Ashkan actually because I think his character carries so much pathos, and he's interesting, he's heartbreaking, he's sad. I really like him. The actor's name is Sina Razani, and I think I'd give it to him.
Yeah, he's good.
He's my prize for best actor. Same for you?
No, mine is. I don't know which of them it is because they don't have photos on IMDb. It's either Ali Sarabi or Siamak Safari. It's the hitman with the long hair.
Okay, well, I thought you said one of the hitmen's last name was Mokri.
No, that's the blind man.
Oh, right. Okay, the hitman. Oh, the hitman with the long hair. Yeah, I see what you mean. The one who gets hit by the car.
Yeah. The samurai one.
Yeah, that's a good one. Can I also give a shout out to someone?
Yeah.
I really liked the morgue attendant with the glasses. I thought she was really good. Very pretty. Cool. Okay. Festival of Cons.
Okay, I have one.
You have one. I have a few.
So my only one, for the most part, is that we don't really have a through line that connects every single story. And I think the best use of that through line would have been the lucky/unlucky ring.
You know, we haven't even mentioned the fact that there is this lucky ring that is playing throughout the entire film.
That's true.
And I couldn't tell whether at times the ring feels lucky and at times you feel cursed wearing it, right?
Yeah.
So what was the ultimate thing? Because it's also just kind of a device that's being used. It's not even really handed off to every vignette, although that would have been a cool use to do it. You know, where like every character at one point has the ring.
Yeah.
Would have been neat. But it's just a handful of characters. It doesn't really play that largely into the story. It's even unclear whether or not it is lucky or unlucky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like at one point, the blind man has the ring. He gives it up. He's like, you know what? It's just nothing. It brings me no luck. The second he gives up the ring, the cop lets him go. The other cop, right? So I'm like, so it's unlucky. But then I was confused. Does the ring end up with Ashkan at the end? Because there is a moment when the cop fires bullets at him and they seemingly all miss him. Later, it is revealed that one of them hit him, but even the cop is looking at his gun like, what the hell? Why didn't these bullets hit him?
Yeah.
And I was confused as to whether or not he had the ring. But are you able to follow that through line with the ring? Who it ends up with? It ends up with the Basiji soldier guy, right? Just in the car?
Yeah. At the very end of the movie, yeah. Like chronologically, he gets it at the end.
So it just seems like the ring goes from one blind robber he gives it to the other blind robber. And then that other blind robber just gives it to that cop, Basiji soldier guy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's it. It's just those three.
Yeah. I feel like it should have gone basically through every single storyline.
Yeah, it would have been really interesting to do that. And I almost feel like I feel like at one point the draft or earlier draft might have had it or something, you know?
Maybe,
Don't you get that feeling?
Maybe.
My Festival of Cons is, I think the title is awful. I honestly think the title is just awful. For a film that I really thoroughly enjoyed, I think Ashkan, The Charmed Ring, and Other Stories is just too much of a mouthful. It's even longer in Farsi, which is Ashkan Angoshtare
Ashkan Angoshtare Motebarek va Dastanhay Digar.
I mean, how long of a title is that? It's like 17 syllables.
Yeah.
I feel like this film could have probably had like a punchier title to probably also like help maybe sell it. Like,
I mean,
I don't
I
know.
feel like there's a lot of these like indie art house films that do something like this where they have like one main title and then like a long subtitle. And I think it's meant to be like kind of tongue in cheek and kind of funny.
Yeah, but you think the film is called then Ashkan and the rest is just subtitle?
Yeah. Like even on the poster, that's how it's written.
Well, I mean, it'd have to be written that way. You wouldn't be able to fit all of that in any other.
Well, it's like what's that one movie? Not Batman Begins. Birds of Prey.
Yeah,
The actual
Emancipation.
title for it's like what's the full title for it?
The Emancipation of Harley Quinn.
There's more to it.
Yeah.
Okay, it's Birds of Prey and the Fabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn.
It's actually fantabulous.
Oh yeah, you're right. Fantabulous. And that's also a reference to another movie that had a title like that too, isn't it?
The other thing is I feel like that 23 frame, 24 frame thing, it kind of really just during the action scenes, I feel like there's a lot of whip pans, like action, like a car driving by really quickly, and like it's a little disorienting.
Interesting.
That frame, I was just like, what's happening? It felt shakier than it should have been.
I like that a lot. I thought it actually added to the film. That's funny.
Then the last thing I'll say, and this is me without even knowing what you said about behind the scenes of trivia, I thought the performances of particularly one of the blind robbers was not great.
Mm-hmm.
The acting, it doesn't matter which one. I won't even call anyone out. But like,
Oh, shots fired. You heard it here first, folks.
I don't know. And then you say to me that first he went to like theater. He picked them from like local theater, and I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But some of them should. But then you're like, even those two wanted like they weren't like they were just friends of his. And I just felt like we spent so much time with them, especially off the bat, that I get like a little like antsy the first time I saw it. I was like, oh, the performances here aren't like great.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do you think? You thought they were fine? You didn't have a problem with it?
I thought they were fine. I mean, one of them, yeah, I agree with you. But I think it wasn't enough to really take me out of it. I think the charm of the movie, pun intended, the charm of the movie itself was enough to like keep me very engaged.
Keep you in the ring.
Yeah. Yeah. The charm of the movie kept me in the ring.
Got it.
Nice.
Double feature lineup.
You go first.
It's just the Pulp Fiction makes the most sense to me. I'd also say Run Lola Run.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Who made that?
Run Lola Run?
Yeah.
Tom Tykwer, I think.
Okay. I don't know why I thought it was Luc Besson.
No, it's because it's French film, maybe?
I don't know, maybe.
Or it's German film, actually.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Whatever. They're all the same. French, German, Belgian.
Yeah, exactly.
All the same. Aside from
yours?
Pulp Fiction, I wrote Pulp Fiction, and then I also wrote thinking like, in case Pulp Fiction gets taken, which I was like, yeah, it's gonna get taken. Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Oh, interesting.
I thought would be a good comp. Another Iranian genre film.
Black and white.
Black and white. Yeah, some like interesting music choices in both. Like interesting in a positive way. I like them both. And kind of like gritty and rough around the edges in a really good way. I think it'd make for a fun Iranian genre night.
I'd actually argue Girl Walks Home Alone at Night it's very like precise in the things that you're showing, and I don't know. I felt like when I think of Girl Walks Home Alone, I think like still shots, long shots, kind of like almost like photographic. This felt a little bit more like handheld camera, actiony.
Sure, yeah. I mean, in the sense of like they're both low budget films, and I think the low budgetness of both films lends to the charm of the aesthetic of the movie itself. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like it doesn't feel like I'm watching a cheap indie film.
Yeah.
Like I know this from a meta perspective that these are both low budget films, but within the world of the universe, it leads into some of that unpolished grit.
Yeah.
And yeah, in a lot of ways, it's like, no, it's like shots, the movement is smooth and all this stuff. Sure. But I mean, like, it's still not like a $1 million camera with like a crazy lens and like 35 millimeter film or whatever, you know?
Yeah. No, I hear you for sure. Can this be a modern Hollywood remake? You know what? I would give it to him. This is gonna sound so crap. I almost want to see him George Lucas this a bit with like a slightly better. Like I want keep the same script and like do this with a little bit bigger budget and maybe slightly more refined actors. That's what I'd want to see him do.
Yeah.
Take the same filmmaker, same script, and give him a Hollywood budget. Shoot in LA.
I'm into it.
Or wherever. Shoot it under a Hollywood studio. Final thoughts and grades. I give this an A minus. I think I struggle between B plus plus and A minus.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a really, really great film for the pantheon of films that you don't get to ever see in Iranian cinema. It's clever, it's witty, it's fun. Like you said, it's a fun ride.
Yeah.
I just feel like that rough around the edges, it still like totally goes into like style and whatever, but like it kind of reminds me of Clerks, you know?
Yeah.
Kevin Smith's Clerks. It's just kind of
See,
like...
it's funny you mentioned that because Clerks is a movie where I definitely feel the low budgetness of it for me. And it does take me out of the movie quite a bit.
Yeah, well, I felt that way this time about this.
Okay.
So, Nana Boo Boo. But let's give it an A minus because I'm feeling generous today.
Great. Are you not merciful?
Yes.
I'm surprised you were like B plus or A minus, but you didn't consider B plus plus or A minus.
I did. I said B plus plus or A minus.
Oh, okay. So A minus.
Yeah.
I really like this film. I want to watch it again because I feel like this movie might reward rewatches in a lot of ways. But I feel like it's also a movie that if you're going to rewatch it, you like need to rewatch it pretty soon after. Because if you wait too long, then you won't be able to track the things that you're trying to look for.
Which is what happened to me.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So I might try to find some time to watch it again at some point. Yeah, it was a very unique, fun world. And for all the reasons that we talked about, I'm going to give it an A, which means that our Cinemarex score show average for Ashkan, The Charmed Ring, and Other Stories is A minus.
There's a rough charm to Ashkan, The Charmed Ring, and Other Stories, a kind of beautiful jankiness that only comes to the debut feature brimming with ambition and personality. It's scrappy, sure. Some of the edges are jagged, the pacing uneven, but that almost becomes part of its allure. What makes the film stand out is its unmistakable voice, a darkly comic, interconnected crime tapestry that feels like a drum and bass remix of Pulp Fiction filtered through the lens of modern Iran. It's a rare tonal outlier in Iranian cinema, playful, nihilistic, and strangely hopeful all at once. Watching it, you can feel the influence of the past, the heist genre, Tarantino's narrative gymnastics, but nothing about it feels derivative. If anything, it breathes new life into the familiar. In a landscape that too often plays it safe, this film takes wild swings, and even when it misses with style. Farhan, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. It's great to have you as a guest.
Thank you, Kaveh. Thanks.
You know how I feel about you.
Unfortunately.
To all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Be sure to follow us at CinemaRex Podcast on Instagram.
Like, subscribe, share with your friends.
Yeah, share with your friends. Why not?
You have the app open. Just like hit the little thumbs up.
You like movies. You like Iranian movies.
Yeah,
you like one of us.
Yeah. The smart one or the funny one. Figure out who's who. Leave it in the comments.
Yeah. And thank you for tuning in. To all of you guys and everyone else, but only the D-Dog.
Bye. Music for Cinema Rex was written and performed by Sohail Sadinejad.